Welcome back to Let the Quran Speak. Is Islam in need of a reformation? Some people have said it does. It is in need of a reformation, and we'll be discussing that today. But Shabir, what do you think? Some people have said we need, Muslims need a Luther, or Muslims need a reformation similar to the Protestant Reformation.
Well, when we make comparisons like this, red flags get thrown up. People respond emotionally to suggestions based on word associations. So when we talk about what is needed to be done within the Islamic community and with the Muslim faith, it's better to not make such associations. It just clarifies the thinking a little bit more. If we think more clearly about the Islamic principles and what they are and how well they are being practiced or lived out by Muslims.
So you don't think that making reference to the Reformation of the past has any good purpose when we think about Islam, or what needs to be changed about Islam?
The analogy and the correspondence between things inevitably would be brought up. There's no avoiding it, and so we must face that as well. So it's natural for non-Muslims familiar with the Protestant Reformation to ask, well, wait a minute, where is the Reformation in Islam? But people make those associations across the board. Somebody says, we have a Bible. Where is your Bible? We have a church. What's your church? And so on. So people make associations like that. But from within the Muslim faith, Muslims have to sincerely and honestly look at what their faith is about, ask how it has been practiced over time, and ask, is our present perception of Islam true to the original message? Have we, over time, perhaps allowed the faith to evolve away from what it was initially? And what do we need now? Do we need the evolved faith, or do we need how it was initially? Or do we need a faith that is evolved, but again, it is not the present state of its evolution, but does it need to be evolved a little bit further? Or does it need to start with the original principles and evolved in a different direction to satisfy the needs of the present time? These are questions that we do need to ask from within the faith itself, without reference to things that are outside of it.
But how would understanding the Protestant Reformation help us in our current situation? Are there any analogies?
It may alert us to the need that often would present itself in the face of an evolved and standardized way of viewing a faith. The Christian faith had been in existence for many centuries, starting with the preachings of Jesus, on whom be peace, and then with his disciples, the writing of the Gospels and the rest of the New Testament, then the church councils that were held over time, first the Council of Nicaea 325, Council of Constantinople 381, Council of Ephesus 431, Chalcedon 451. So there has been a series of councils that came to determine what Christianity would be. Then there were the political upheavals and changes with some governments favoring the doctrine of the Trinity, some not, and eventually the doctrine of the Trinity becoming standard. The Constantinopolitan Creed becoming fixed as a standard feature of Christianity. Christianity eventually, having been supported by Constantine and other Roman governors, becomes Roman Catholicism. It's Catholicism because it was understood to be that which is generally believed, and Roman Catholicism because it has this Roman flavor about it. But then that remained the standard for many centuries. The Western Church had to deal with the schism of the Eastern Church in 1054. But by and large, Roman Catholicism became the dominant form of Christianity until the Reformation. Well, the Reformation with Martin Luther and Zwingli and others, I said King by mistake, Martin Luther and Zwingli and others, was in response to certain features of the Catholic Church as they understood it in their day, and as they were not happy about.
So you think those were distinct to Catholicism, or can that be related to Islam?
Well, some of the features may in fact relate, but only in a broad sense, only in the sense that an institutionalized religious body can take control and speak for all followers of that faith without necessarily really speaking for everyone to their satisfaction. So there comes a time when the masses might say, look, we have had enough of this and we want to be able to speak for ourselves. But that sort of thing is happening in Islam anyway, and has always happened in Islam. Okay. The difference, and the reason I think we need to really look at Islam from within in this regard, is that Islam has had a very different history, the way in which it has been interpreted and the way it has been institutionalized. Certainly there are parallels. But,
so how is Islam very different, or the history of Islam very different?
Well, for one thing, Islam has not had this kind of overarching hierarchy that can really speak authoritatively for all Muslims. There have been Muslim governments over time, but they were not successful in imposing a particular view on everyone. In fact, very soon in Islamic history, we noticed that the ulama, or the scholars of Islam, had a sort of independent jurisdiction away from the governments. And they often refused to be in league with the governments just so that they can preserve their freedom to speak truthfully about what they understand Islam to be teaching. So often their teachings would be in the face of government rulings. Sometimes the scholars were brought in and threatened and whipped and put in prison because they would not concede to government rulings. So we have the perception of what Islam is given from a detached position, the position of the scholars who do not have the political axe to grind. But having said that, we can say also that perceptions can be shaped by the time and place in which one lives, by the experiences one has had. And there have been classical perceptions of what Islam is, given by great scholars of Islam, that are in serious need of being looked at again today from our perspective, because we too have been shaped by our own experiences. We too have had the opportunity to learn and study, and moreover we benefit from the studies that have been done before us. We can look at scholars in the past and we can see what they have said, why they have said it, and we too, as students of the faith today, can ask again, what were the influences that shaped their rulings, and are there new influences that perhaps call for different rulings? And can we respond to the new challenges that we face with the rulings that will be appropriate to our time and place?
So what would you call that then, that sort of analysis, that sort of exploration?
To me, this will be a continuing of...
something that's been done before?
Yeah, of that which has always been done. The problem that has occurred is that for some centuries past, there has been a great degree of stagnation in this regard. In the early centuries, there was a great flurry of activity. People were asking questions that were never asked before, and they were struggling for answers. But the problem that occurred is that that development rose to a certain extent and then came to a sort of standstill. If you think of a learning curve, a person learns so much in every new activity, the learning curve shoots right up, and then suddenly there's no more learning. You kind of come to a standstill. You're doing the same thing over and over again. You're not learning anything new from it. That has happened in thinking about Islam as well. There was a shooting up of the learning curve. People were asking new questions, coming up with new answers, and then eventually a stagnation. We need to get ourselves out of that stagnation phase.
All right, we'll leave it at that. We will take a break. Stay with us. When we come back, we will answer questions we've received from you, our viewers.